So picture this. You're lying on the couch.
Right.
The lights are off, the house is completely quiet, and you're just staring up at the ceiling.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right. And your body hasn't actually done anything physically taxing today. I mean, you haven't run a marathon.
You haven't chopped a cord of wood or anything.
Exactly. You've mostly just, sat in a chair.
Yeah, probably staring at a screen.
But inside your head, there is this intense, almost deafening roar of hollow exhaustion.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like
your eyes are throbbing slightly, and you just feel incredibly deeply drained.
And, the worst part is the guilt that goes with it.
The guilt, yeah.
Because if someone were to ask you, what you actually learned today, or what you achieved to justify being that tired,
you'd probably draw a complete blank.
Right. You feel totally overwhelmed, but empty at the same exact time.
Which just feels like this massive personal failing. You sit there thinking, I just lack discipline.
Or I'm not smart enough to keep up with everything.
Yeah, you think, I'm doing something wrong. But I was looking at the biological data in the source material for today's deep dive, and it completely broke my brain.
The numbers are wild, aren't they?
I literally had to count the zeros. Because it turns out that feeling radiating behind your eyes, it isn't a lack of resilience.
No, not at all.
It's a literal, physical, biological traffic jam.
It's a physiological reality of human neurobiology that we, for some reason, just constantly try to pretend doesn't exist.
Right, we just ignore it.
We really do. We expect our conscious minds to be this perfect, high-definition, limitless hard drive that just records reality.
Like we're walking cameras.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the discrepancy between what we are physically exposed to and what the brain can actually parse, it's staggering.
Well, let's put the actual numbers on the table, because I think this changes the entire context of modern life.
Go for it.
So your eye, just on a purely mechanical, anatomical level, takes in roughly 10 million bits of visual information every single second.
10 million.
10 million. In the time it takes to, snap your fingers, your retinas have absorbed 10 million discrete pieces of data from your environment.
Which, honestly, is a miracle of evolutionary engineering.
It really is.
The optic nerve is just flooding the system with raw data, the temperature, the light, the movement in your peripheral vision, the shifting shadows, all of it.
But then we hit the bottleneck, because the conscious brain, the part of you that actually thinks and categorizes and forms memories.
The you part of you.
Right, exactly. That part can only process about 50 bits in that exact same time frame.
Wait, not 50,000?
No, 50. Just 50.
Man, 10 million bits hitting the sensor and 50 bits making it through the door of conscious processing.
It's absurd, right?
That ratio just completely defies our entire modern expectation of ourselves. It is, it's like trying to force an entire ocean through a garden hose.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
And so the vast, overwhelming majority of what you, quote unquote, see every day never truly registers in your conscious awareness.
It just vanishes.
Basically, it has to be filtered out or discarded or shoved into the deep subconscious just to keep the system from crashing.
So if our biological hardware caps us at 50 bits a second, how on earth are we surviving in a modern environment that is entirely built to hammer us with billions of engineered data points?
That is the million-dollar question.
And it's exactly what we're tackling today. We're diving into a newly published book that diagnoses this exact crisis.
Yes, and it's a fascinating source.
It just came out on April 22nd, 2026. The original text was actually German, and we are unpacking the English translation of these ideas today. It's called Perzeptionismus, The New View of Reality by Heinz Keller.
It is an absolutely foundational text for understanding this modern hollow feeling.
Yeah.
It's a 264-page paperback published by Books on Demand.
Yeah.
And what's immediately telling is how it's categorized.
Oh, right, the genres.
Yeah, it sits under both self-help and law.
Law, that's so unusual.
Right. Which tells you this isn't going to be like fluffy, esoteric philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
There is a very structural, systemic approach to how we are breaking our own minds.
Just for anyone wanting to track down the physical copy, it runs about 34 euros, and the ebook is roughly 10.
Good to know.
But we are going to extract the absolute core mechanics of Keller's argument today. Because if you accept that biological bottleneck, the 10 million versus the 50,
right,
then you realize that the exhaustion you feel on the couch isn't accidental. The modern world is fundamentally exploiting this gap.
It has absolutely weaponized the limitation. I mean, just consider the daily bombardment.
Oh, it's nonstop.
From the moment you wake up, Your 10 million bits per second are flooded with stimuli that are engineered by, frankly, highly paid professionals to demand your attention.
Yeah, you open your phone and it's just boom.
Exactly. You have emails demanding immediate categorization. You have memes that require you to retrieve this complex cultural context instantly just to get the joke. You pass digital billboards. You see short-form videos playing on the subway. You're processing the stressed micro-expressions of hundreds of strangers on your commute.
The retinas are just being absolutely hammered.
Constantly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because here is where the illusion of knowledge sets in.
Right.
Because the light literally entered our pupils, and because we stared at the screen, we walk away with this bizarre paradox.
We feel like we know things.
Exactly. We feel like we are the most informed generation in human history. We feel worldly. We really think we have seen everything.
But Keller points out that this sheer volume of raw data correlates negatively with our actual depth of orientation.
Negatively. So the more we see, the less we know.
Exactly. We are confusing sensory contact with cognitive integration. Just because your eye touched the data doesn't mean your mind embraced the knowledge.
Man, that hits hard. Let's look at the classic scenario of doom scrolling to kind of ground this.
Oh, the perfect example.
You're lying in bed, you open an app. In the span of 60 seconds, you watch a 15-second video explaining a devastating geopolitical conflict.
Yeah.
You barely register the human suffering before you swipe, and then suddenly you're watching a cat clumsily falling off a counter to a funny sound effect.
With the goofy music and everything.
Yeah. And then swipe again. Visceral, shaky footage from a war zone.
It's jarring.
Swipe again. A beautifully shot, emotional montage of a stranger's wedding. In 1 minute, you've jumped from geopolitical tragedy to slapstick comedy to mortal terror to profound romantic joy.
What's fascinating here is the neurobiology of what you were doing in those 60 seconds.
Yeah.
It's violent.
Violent, really?
Yes, you are demanding that your nervous system produce an emotional response. A spike in cortisol for the war zone, a hit of dopamine for the cat.
Right.
But you are providing zero refractory period. You are forcing a biological organism to work at the mechanical rhythm of a server farm.
Wow. So because my eyes saw the video of the war zone, my brain tricks me into thinking I understand the conflict. But really, I just got hit with light and a cortisol spike.
Precisely the opposite of understanding is happening. When you swipe from a war zone to a wedding in a fraction of a second, those 50 bits of conscious processing are essentially short-circuiting.
They just can't keep up.
They can't. You aren't experiencing the war zone, and you aren't experiencing the joy of the wedding. You are merely skimming the absolute surface tension of the data.
Okay, so the exhaustion you feel later isn't just physical fatigue.
No, it is a structural loss of mental order.
A structural loss of mental order. Okay, I need to know what that actually looks like inside the brain.
But it means your mind is losing its ability to organize reality because it's being asked to do the impossible.
Because of the speed.
Right. Memory formation and deep comprehension require time and structural linkage. When you consume surface stimuli at that frantic pace, you are basically throwing thousands of unlinked puzzle pieces into a box and shaking it.
That's a terrifying image.
And the faster you consume, the blurrier the actual world becomes.
Yeah.
You lose the edges of things. You've consumed vast quantities of reality, but you have ordered none of it.
Which explains the empty feeling on the couch perfectly.
Completely.
It's like eating 10,000 calories of pure, unflavored gelatin. You are physically stuffed to the point of sickness, but your body is still starving for actual nutrition.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
So if we are absorbing this much but understanding so little, how does this new book diagnose the exact point where our perception breaks down?
So Keller isolates our specific cultural deficit.
Okay.
He argues that our era is characterized by an incredibly unique extreme.
Okay.
We are unprecedentedly rich in images, in raw information, and opinions. I mean, you can find a fully formed opinion on any topic on Earth in 3 seconds.
Easily.
Yet simultaneously, we are almost entirely impoverished when it comes to deepening that knowledge. We possess everything, yet we understand almost nothing in its entirety.
We possess everything but understand nothing. That is haunting.
It really is.
There is a central quote from the book that I think perfectly captures the mechanics of this failure. Keller writes, "The gaze jumps, the mind reacts, the judgment falls before what is seen can take shape internally."
Let's dissect the sequence of that quote, because it really is the diagnostic center of his entire philosophy.
Let's do it.
So, the gaze jumps refers to that frantic visual intake we talked about, the swiping, the darting eyes, the 10 million bits flooding in.
The doom scrolling.
Exactly. Then the mind reacts is the immediate biological flush, the emotion.
The cortisol or dopamine.
Right. But the absolute most dangerous part of the sequence is the third step.
Yeah.
The judgment falls.
Okay, so why do we judge so fast? Like, if I see a complex political post, why does my brain instantly demand that I label it good or bad?
Because of cognitive heuristics, evolutionary shortcuts.
Shortcuts, like to save brain power.
Sort of to save your life, historically.
Yeah.
If you go back to our hunter-gatherer days, if you saw rustling in the bushes, you couldn't stand there and patiently evaluate the 50 bits of data to determine the species of the animal.
Right, you can't be like, oh, I wonder what kind of ear structure that is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd be eaten. You had to instantly categorize it as dangerous tiger and run. Yeah. Your brain evolved to force rapid categorization to survive an overwhelming environment.
Oh, wow. So society is basically exploiting a survival mechanism.
Bingo.
We have to categorize these millions of data points instantly just to keep from drowning in them. We see a nuanced social issue, we get the emotional spike, and we judge it as toxic or righteous in, like, 3 seconds.
Yes.
We just shove it into a mental drawer and slam it shut so we can deal with the next onslaught.
And here is how that corrupts your intellect. When you do that, you stop interacting with reality entirely.
Wait, entirely?
Yes. You think you are engaging with the world, reading the news, learning about society, but you are not.
What am I doing then?
When you instantly label that complex issue, you haven't understood it. You have merely reinforced your existing internal architecture. The world becomes nothing more than a series of triggers for your preconceived biases.
Oh my God, I'm just walking through a hall of mirrors thinking I'm looking out of a window.
That is exactly what is happening.
The outside world ceases to teach me anything because I refuse to give it the time to exist on its own terms before I judge it.
If you do not let the thing take shape internally, as Keller says, it remains a phantom. You are fighting phantoms and cheering for phantoms.
Now, hearing all of this, I feel like the easiest reaction is to just blame the smartphone.
Right, the usual scapegoat.
It's the classic exhausting modern complaint, right? Technology is ruining our brains. Silicon Valley is evil. Put down your screens and go touch grass.
Yeah, we hear that constantly.
But the source material explicitly rejects that framing, which I actually found really refreshing.
It is a vital distinction. Perceptionism is not a work of cultural pessimism.
It's not just complaining about kids these days.
Not at all. Keller does not do the stereotypical everything was better in the 1950s routine, and he does not lay the blame squarely at the feet of the internet. The internet just accelerated a vulnerability that was already there.
Right, because if you think about it, the physical world has always been infinitely complex.
Always.
Long before fiber optic cables, if you walked into a dense forest, there were infinitely more details, millions of leaves, insects, shadows, microclimates than your 50-bit conscious brain could ever process.
Absolutely.
The world has always offered infinite material. So if the sheer volume of the internet isn't fundamentally at fault, what is the real problem?
The problem is that we have unlearned a vital cultural technique to handle that volume. We have lost the act of pausing.
Pausing.
Yes. The source text translates a specific German concept here. Sammlung. It translates roughly to gathering or collection, but specifically the gathering of one's mind.
Gathering of one's mind. Okay.
We lack the ability to pull our scattered attention back into a unified, centered focal point when confronted with something new.
Okay, I have to challenge this right here.
Go for it.
When I hear terms like gathering your mind, centering your focus, or pausing, my skeptical brain immediately sets off an alarm.
I get that.
Isn't this just a fancy philosophical rebranding of mindfulness meditation? Because we are already drowning in mindfulness advice.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Every corporate HR department, every smartwatch, every health app tells you to take a deep breath, be present, and practice mindfulness. Is color just repackaging basic breathing exercises?
This raises an important question, and it's a completely natural skepticism. But the distinction between popular mindfulness and perceptionism is profound.
Okay, lay it on me.
Look at how popular mindfulness is applied today.
Mm-hmm.
It is almost exclusively used as a therapeutic coping mechanism.
Right.
You do a 5-minute breathing exercise so you can lower your blood pressure, clear your head, and then dive right back into the frantic, judgmental rat race with slightly more efficiency.
It's just a pit stop. You change the tires so you can keep racing.
Exactly. It's maintenance for the machine.
Mm-hmm.
But perceptionism views perception not as a relaxation technique, but as the absolute origin of your reality.
The origin.
Yes. It is a rigorous epistemological stance.
Mm-hmm.
Epistemology is the study of how we know what we know.
Right.
Culler's arguing that perception is the prerequisite for mental order. If your perception is hurried and judgmental, your entire foundation of knowledge is corrupted.
So in plain English, if I don't pause to let reality in, I'm basically just building a worldview out of my own assumptions.
And then wondering why you feel so disconnected and exhausted.
It's the difference between taking a nap to feel better and undergoing surgery to fix your vision so you stop walking into walls.
That is a great way to put it. And to truly understand the mechanics of this vision surgery, we have to unpack Culler's sharpest distinction.
Let's do it.
He draws a hard, impenetrable line between two things that society assumes are identical. Seeing versus conscious looking.
Okay, yes. The source material provides this incredible analogy to explain the difference, and it's built around photography.
Let's start with the baseline. Mere seeing. In this framework, seeing is just rapid, functional fact scanning.
Right.
You are driving a car, you approach an intersection, and you see a red traffic light. You hit the brakes.
You don't sit there and admire it.
No. You don't linger on the particular shade of the red LED. You don't ponder the design of the traffic pole. You extract the functional data point necessary for survival, and you react.
The 10 million bits hit the retina, the data is acquired, action is taken, it's a closed loop.
Exactly. But conscious looking, or true perceiving, is entirely unconcerned with extracting a functional data point.
So what is it doing?
It is a patient encounter with what reveals itself to you. It requires you to hold a space open for the object or the person or the text to express its full reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because to explain how this actually works, the text uses a darkroom analogy.
Yes, I love this part.
I want to build this out because it perfectly visualizes the invisible mechanics of the brain.
Right.
So if you imagine an old analog film camera.
Right, the kind with actual physical film.
Yeah. You frame a shot of a landscape, you press the button, and the shutter clicks. For a fraction of a second, the lens opens, the light rushes in, and it hits the raw photographic paper inside.
Now, in that moment, the shutter clicking, that is seeing, the light has touched the sensor. The raw data is officially present in the chamber.
But I don't have a picture yet. I just have a piece of paper that was exposed to light. To turn that raw data into an actual image, I have to take it into a darkroom.
Right.
I have to carefully slide that photographic paper into a tray filled with chemical developer bath. And then I have to do the hardest thing of all. I have to wait.
You have to linger.
I have to watch as the chemical reaction slowly pulls the shadows out, then the midtones emerge, and finally the sharp details of the landscape crystallize.
It takes time.
The image takes shape internally, in the dark, over time. That slow emergence in the developer bath, that is conscious looking.
It is a brilliant mechanical translation. Because consider what happens if you bypass that second step.
And if I rush it?
What happens if you get impatient? Imagine you were in that dark room. You slide the paper into the bath, but after 2 seconds, the urge for instant gratification takes over.
No.
You say, I don't have time for this. I know what a landscape looks like. You drag that dripping photo paper out of the bath, and you flip on the harsh, glaring overhead lights of the room. What happens to the exposure?
It is instantly, permanently ruined.
Ruined.
The entire piece of paper just flashes to a stark, blown-out white or black. The image is destroyed because I exposed it to the glaring light of the room before it had fully developed its own internal structure.
And this is the devastating truth about what we do to our own neurobiology every single day.
Every day.
We are constantly dragging our raw impressions prematurely into the glaring